everybody. Welcome to episode 17 of the Brownie Knits Podcast. I am your host, Gina, aka Brownie Knits. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook and Ravelry and Craftsy and, wherever. So I hope you all are doing well. We've been in the late spring, early summer season here where I live, and we've had temperatures all the way up to, 87, 88, and then down to 52. So it's kind of been like this crazy weather spree right now. But hey, it's not snow, and I'm happy that everything is green and the air is great, all that stuff. So for those of you who are returning viewers, welcome back. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. Come on in. We have a Ravelry board. It's the Brownie Knits Ravelry board where you can go and chat with all of us and join the group. I love to interact with people. So thank you for all the messages that I've received in the last couple weeks since I've podcasted. I really appreciate everything and love chatting about everything yarn related with everybody. In this episode, I'm going to talk a little bit about Block 6 for our Brownie Knits 2015 Block Blanket Along, which you can hashtag on Instagram as BK Blanket Along. The patterns are free until January 31st of 2016, and we do a new block each month that I release on the first Wednesday of the month, and so we make our blocks, and then at the end of the year we'll have very pretty nice afghans. So I'm going to talk about that first, and then I'll go into what's been going on in life, some finished things, some works in progress, and then I'm going to answer a few more questions from the Ask the Podcaster thread that we have up on the Ravelry board. So without further ado, here is Block 6. So I need to block my block. So there you go, you can see it. This block had a couple different reasons why I did this. First of all, Block 5, which was our May block, was a pretty detailed cabled block. And I knew that that would be quite a bit of work. It's probably, if it's not the hardest block in the blanket, it's the second hardest. So with Block 6, I wanted to do something that would give you a little bit of time to rest, then regroup. So I wanted something that was simple. I also wanted something that had texture to it. And I wanted something that represented June to me, because every month I've been trying to do something that is related to that month in the design for the block of that month. June for me, usually, not this year, sadly, but usually June for me means a week away at the beach and relaxing on the sand and reading a book and just being very calm, and I just love to go to the beach. So I thought that this pattern kind of looked like the ridges in the sand when the wind blows the sand, or after they've graded it in the early morning, and it looks fresh and new and ready for you to sit there and relax all day and have a yummy drink while you take in the sun. So that is what inspired this one. It's a very simple block to knit. You don't do anything other than knit and purl, and you really only have 2 rows in the repeat that are not just a knit or a purl row. So you start out with your garter at the bottom like normal. We decrease, I think, 1 stitch on that last garter ridge row, and then you're going to do your garter edges like normal, your 4 on each side, with your pattern repeat in the middle. It's very, very simple. Very simple. Great TV knitting or beach knitting if you happen to be lucky enough to go to the beach. We're not getting to go this year because we are doing some other things this year instead. So we're going to go, one big reason, going to Rhinebeck in the fall. So that's a pretty big trip for us, because we'll actually go and see my dad and my grandmother and my other family that live in Pennsylvania on our way up to Rhinebeck. So that's a big thing. We're also going to go in August, have a little trip to Chicago, not very long, but my husband is a huge Tampa Bay Rays fan, and usually we go to at least one game a year, and it's a great excuse for us to get to go to the beach because we can go to Florida for a week and then swing over and take in a game. But since we're not going to do that this year, we are going to go up to Chicago and watch them play a game up there. So that'll be a nice little fun getaway. And then we also in June are hosting my nephew for a week. He'll turn 5 while we have him. Actually, his birthday is on our anniversary. So we're gonna spend the whole week with him here at our house, and Patrick has to work most of the days. I think he's taking one day off. So it'll be Raleigh and I out and about and doing all kinds of fun things. So anyway, that was a total tangent. The yarn for this one, in case you are new to the podcast or to the knit along, and it's never too late to join the knit along for the blanket. The yarn is Barocca Vintage in their worsted weight, and this color is Mushroom. I think this block would do great in light to dark colors. It doesn't matter what color you want to use. If you're using up stash and you've been trying to wait for that right block where you could use a darker, this would be really good for it, but it does really well in light as well. I'm making a second blanket with my some of my stash yarns, and this one is Dream in Color, and the color I believe is Melon Balm. Yeah, and I just loved this color. This stitch does have kind of a rib effect to it, which is why we go down in our number from 52 to 51, so that, you know, when you block it, it really has just tons of stretch to it, so you can get it to be the size dimension that you want. What else do I want to say about that block? I don't think there's anything else. It's really easy peasy. I've loved seeing everybody's block pictures up in the group and on Instagram. They're gorgeous. You guys are doing a great job. I've been working away, and I'm one block shy of being completely done, and I've kind of mapped out the design for it already. I just need to knit it and type it up and get it into editing. So that's very exciting to have that all sitting and waiting for you guys. So all right, what else do we have going on? So I haven't done a huge amount of knitting in the last 2 weeks. I've done some, but I've done a lot of editing work, and I've done some sewing and some painting and visiting with friends and just kind of gardening. Gardening. But I've done those things, so you know that all takes up quite a bit of time, and that takes away sometimes from our knitting or crocheting. I also think I just kind of needed a little bit of a break after the wisdom teeth being taken out and just all this activity that was going on. So it was kind of, I just needed like a little breather in my brain. So, all right, so what have I been doing? I did do a little bit of knitting, not much, but a little, and I finished up these socks. So these are socks that I dyed this. It's the Knit Picks Bare fingering weight yarn, and I used Kool-Aid. I used cherry Kool-Aid and orange Kool-Aid to dye these, and then last year, 2014, for my birthday. And so in May, I thought it was appropriate for me to knit these as my May socks, and they turned out really well. I love how the patterning came out. Can you see the orange there? Yeah, a little bit. So we went up a couple weekends ago, well, Memorial Day, actually. We went up on Memorial Day to see my father-in-law and my mother-in-law, and when we were up there, I was showing her I was finishing up these socks, and I was saying that I Kool-Aid dyed them, and my mother-in-law is a very talented crafter, and so she really shares in my passion for knitting and crochet and has a great appreciation for handmade things. So we always chat about all that stuff. But she was funny. She said as a kid, her favorite Kool-Aid flavor was to mix orange and cherry together, and she called it chorange. So we were laughing because that could be the colorway name for this, is chorange, because it's cherry and orange. So, and that was a fun day. We, a lot of times when we visit, it's my, the whole in-law side of the family, because we'll have my husband's siblings there too, and all of the niece and nephews. But this time it was just the four of us. So we got to catch up with them a little bit more about just life in general. And then his father was showing us his stamp collection, and that was really fun to see. I got a kick out of it because my father-in-law's eyes just lit up, and you could see the passion on his face that he had for stamp collecting. And it reminded me so much of like what I see in myself, or what I see in all of you whenever we're talking about knitting or crocheting. It just really makes you happy, and you can just see that oozing out of people. And he was like that with his stamps, and that was really cute. So, and he was really funny. I said, so do you get the page? He had them, you know, on these pages, and very organized. He was an engineer before he retired, so he's super, super, super organized. And I said, do you get the pages to put them on? And because I was thinking there has this stamp site. Oh no, I make those myself. And he was very excited. It was very, very cute. So that was a fun little visit. And my mother-in-law and I spent some time looking at her grandmother, so my husband's great-grandmother's crocheted work. And she did all this crochet thread work. It was beautiful. And most of them we think were pillowcase edges, but some of them not. Some of them were too small for that, or different, like some were round and stuff. So, but the amount of time and work that she put into those, it was just crazy. And Diane had like a big storage plastic box of them all. So she's planning on getting them all washed up and then figuring out something that she can do with them. And we've talked about maybe framing them. So maybe framing them around a picture in a picture frame, so they're like kind of pressed onto the mat or something. So we'll see. Some of them are quite long. I don't know. There are endless ideas that you could do with them, but they were very, very cool. And it's lovely to see like the heritage that comes down from a family like that. So so that was a fun visit. And then right after, so that was on a Memorial Day on a Monday. The Saturday right before that, I was fortunate enough to get to spend the afternoon with Christina of A Knitter's Life and her mom. And her mom is a wonderful, wonderful watercolorist, and she has started doing acrylics as well. And Christina was so sweet. She knew that May was going to be a difficult month for me because it had my mom's birthday and the anniversary of her death in it. So she said, I want to share my mom with you this month, and that meant the world to me. So we went, and Christina made this gorgeous lunch, and she did a mango papaya salad with lime on it to bring out the flavor, and it was so good that I made us have it a couple times this week as our side dish for lunch. It was just so delicious and great for warmer weather if you're looking for something. So anyway, she set up a little study for us, and when I've done art in my watercolor class that I take each month at the library, it's kind of a quick and dirty class. You go in, she has a photocopy of a painting that she has done. There was like a little noise in here, and I don't know what it was. There shouldn't be anything in here. It freaked me out. Maybe it was a bird. We'll say it was a bird. Anyway, so you go in, and it's a photocopy, and then you sketch on the paper and pencil the outline of the drawing. And then she gives you a little palette that has the paints already pre-squeezed on it for everybody. And we pay $15. We get all the materials that we need for the class. And she walks around and tells us, do this, do that, da da da. So for what it is, it's absolutely fabulous, and I've learned a ton. But she doesn't really go into a lot of techniques in terms, well, she does techniques, I shouldn't say that. She doesn't go into a lot of definitions of how do you look at the light, how do you look at the values and the light, medium, and dark, and where you're not doing a live study, so you're not looking at like where does the light come from and where's the direction of all that, how does it affect your painting and things like that. So Ms. Winslow did, and that was fantastic. She gave me a lot of art theory, and it just really clicked a lot of the other things into place. And it also helped me because a little light bulb went off, and I've had some photography courses and then obviously a lot of knitting courses, and I never really put all the connections together with painting with that, and for the first time I did. So I really appreciated all the knowledge that she passed along, and we had a really fun time. So this is my finished painting, and we did a lot of, the light, you pick the direction that your light is coming from. So my light was coming from this way, so you've got all these shadows over here a little bit more than here because the light's illuminating it. And shadows, I didn't mention this to Christina and her mom, but shadows and darkness are something that I have a really hard time with in watercolor class. I'm so resistant to putting that in. And in my eyes before, it was always because I love color, and I wanted color in my painting. I wanted it bright and vibrant, and I wasn't really putting the connection into it popping, darkness popping your light, and you having to have that contrast in order to make everything really appear better. So that was really fun. And yeah, I thought it turned out well. I like it better on its own. When I compare it to Christina and Miss Winslow's, I feel they're far superior, but I really do like it. The final result was something that I was very pleased with. So I also had an art watercolor class in there, but I didn't bring it over. So I've had 2 art classes since I talked to you guys last, and then it was super rain. We've had these like days where it got really, really hot, and so in the afternoon we've had these pop-up thunderstorms that have been leaving us with a lot of rain, and sometimes pretty severe, but not usually long-lasting. But on Saturday, it was so hot. Oh, it was sticky and muggy, and it felt like July or August. It was really, really warm. And that was the day that Patrick and I decided, well, we'll go and get the things that we needed to do some work around outside in the backyard. Because the next day, on Sunday, the temperature was going to be a high of 62 or something. So we're like, that's the day that we'll plant. Instead of the day where it's near 90, we'll do it when it's near, 60, 65. So, but it was really rainy then on that Saturday afternoon after we did all of our chores. So we were like, what are we going to do? So I decided that I'd pull out a few canvases and the acrylic paints and give painting a whirl. And my husband is so sweet. Like if it's something that we're doing together, it doesn't matter what it is, he'll do it. I haven't gotten him to knit. I probably won't. But anything else like it, he'll watch a movie I want to watch, or, and I do it too for him. But, painting, he goes to a couple painting classes with me a year. I don't know. It's just sweet that he does that. So this is the start. This is a whip. This is the start of a painting. So I did my background and did, the blue sky and the green bottom. And I'm not done getting the contrast in there. So, and it's lighter than what it's looking on screen. This is a little bit lighter. But, and then I did my little sheepy here. So I haven't decided. Whereas with this, we had a live study. So I knew what I was going to do. And we did a little sketch beforehand of where our light, medium, and dark colors were going to be and kind of our content. This one is totally just, This one's totally just coming out of my head. I didn't pre-plan anything other than I knew I wanted to put a sheep on it. So I'm not sure what else is going to be here. At one point I thought I would put the sheep down in here and I'd have a tree here, and then I hated the tree. So you can see a lot of this darkness, I covered up the tree with paints, and then went in and sketched out my little sheepy. I think he kind of looks like an old professor sheep. I was having tons of trouble with his face. So I still need to put in eyes and a nose and mouth that stay, because I've actually put them in, no joke, no exaggeration, at least 20 times and covered it up. So I need to practice that a little bit on something else and then get his facial features here. Faces are just super tough. And then I'm hoping that at some point, like, the content for the rest of the painting comes to me. I have a couple ideas, but I'm not sure how to if I can make them work or not. And I'm not sure, yeah, there you can see. So I kind of like layered the paint here to get like a fluffy fleece feeling to the sheepy. But so far so good. And this is the first time I've done a painting where I didn't just sit and do it all at once, and I, am taking it in stages. So we'll see how it turns out. I just thought it was kind of a cute little thing to try. So, and Patrick did the logo for the baseball team that he likes. Let's see, I did have a couple other finished objects actually. So when I wasn't painting and I wasn't visiting family or friends or knitting, I was sewing. And one of the things that I finished sewing is off in the mail to my swap partner, Hannah. Hi, Hannah. She is in Finland. I'm part of the Swap for All Seasons 2015 Swap in Ravelry. You get assigned a partner and you send packages to each other 4 times a year. So I just mailed off her summer package to make sure it gets there by July 4th, I think is the date. But I made her something and I sent it off, but I took a picture before I did. So Hannah, if you could not look until I tell you you can again, I'll put up a picture here of the item so that everybody can see it. And I really, really love the colors in this, and just really hope that Hannah loves it as much as I did. I really wanted to keep it for myself, so I might have to make another. All right, so did you like that? All right, so Hannah, you can look back now. And then I also did a little bit of sewing and made very simple. People who are watching who sew and know how to sew, I'm brand new. So I've done little project bags, knitting project bags, and then I decided I was going to do some very, 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 very simple pillowcases. So I made these little pillowcases. Have it upside down. Here we go. I got this fabric, and it's really a more brilliant turquoisey than it's showing on the screen right now, but it has this like wave print to it. There it's right side up. And so I figured, since I don't get to go to the beach this year, I would bring the beach to us. So I made us each a pillowcase with this little wave theme on it, so it matches our bedroom, because we've got turquoises and browns in there. So those were simple, easy, and fun to do. I followed a video that I found on YouTube. It said that you only need 1 yard of fabric to make a normal size pillowcase, but so I bought 3 yards thinking I would make 3 pillowcases, but I only got 2 pillowcases out of it because I wanted the direction of the fabric to be this. I didn't want my pillowcase to be this going, across. So because I cut it that direction, I didn't have enough to make 3 pillowcases. I only had enough to make 2. So, like I said, I'm a beginner, so lesson learned. I'm just looking at my notes. I don't want to forget anything. Yeah, my other in progress. So, My other in progress / half a finished item, I cheated. You guys, totally cheated. So I finished on my May socks, and I thought, I really want to cast on that skein of yarn that Patrick bought me from Vista Dyeworks. They were supposed to be my June socks. And I wasn't feeling the love for any other projects that I wanted to start or work on other than my design work that I've been doing. So I thought, well, I'm just going to do it. So I cast it on early, and then on May 31st, the last day of May, I finished up the first sock. So they're half June, maybe. And this is the Vista Dyeworks, and it's her Top Gun colorway. Let me pull out the tag and I'll tell you. And it's the Viso base. And it turned out great. So, yeah, I felt like I should be, singing some Kenny Loggins as I was knitting it or something. So I have one finished, and then I have the other one casted on and the ribbing done. So hopefully I knock those out pretty fast. And I'm thinking that usually in the summertime, last summer, I knit a lot of socks in June. So I might actually do 2 pairs of socks this month. I just heard that noise again. You know what I think it is? I think we have a nest of birds outside of one of these windows. Yeah. Anyway, so I think I'm going to try to crochet some socks, because on our Brownie Knits Ravelry group board, there's a thread for scrapkin along. So a lot of people have been crocheting or knitting scrap afghans, and we've been sharing things there. And then somebody shared, was it there? Actually, was it that thread or was it another thread? Somebody shared a picture, maybe it was the finished objects thread or what you're working on thread. Shared a picture of some crocheted socks that she had done, and then others were asking her about it, and I asked her what pattern she used, and she sent me the link to the one that she used, which is no longer available, but another one that we think is similar. So I think I'm gonna do crocheted socks and give those a whirl, and I think that'll be fun. So if anybody wants to do it, maybe I'll open up a thread on the group, and we can have a little sock crochet along over the next maybe June, July. I'm not so sure I could do it all in June, so we'll do June, July. So that was one fun thing I wanted to mention. Let's see, what else? Oh, I also wanted to mention that when I was visiting my in-laws, my mother-in-law was saying, I really like the podcast, but I miss your blog. And I've been thinking a lot about the blog because that's how I started my online presence for Brownie Knits, and I love to write and post pictures and such. And I've gotten away from it with the podcast because the podcast does take some effort. But I had also just been writing the blog for so long, it's hard to always come up with what you feel like is fresh or new content. So I took, this little hiatus from writing on the blog. But what I've decided to do is, since I post the podcast every other week, on the weeks where I don't post a podcast, I'm going to take that time each week and write blog posts. So one week you'll be able to see a podcast, and one week you'll be able to read some posts. And some of those posts will expand a little bit more on what you see in the podcast. And then some will be completely unrelated to what you see in the podcast. So I wanted to mention that, and the blog is ginaknaus.blogspot.com. And so I hope that you will read along as I start writing again. And sometimes there, it's just like more of a photography post than writing, but usually not. Usually I do a combination. And then I also wanted to remind everybody about our mystery giveaway, which is our giveaway that we'll draw for in the second podcast in July. You can go up to the Ravelry board and there's a mystery giveaway thread, and you can answer the questions there. And you don't have to answer all the questions, but just answer, as many as you want on what your favorite mystery book, TV show, movie, or knit along or crochet along are. And that's a fascinating thread. I encourage all of you to go up there and read it too, because you can get some great ideas for what knitting and crocheting, but also movies, books, and TV. So that's fantastic. And the winner of that giveaway will get a copy of a signed book from my friend Larry Sweazy. It's called See Also Murder. It is a mystery novel, and I pulled these 4 skeins of Happy Feet from Plymouth, and they're fingering weight, and I thought it was a blood red yarn, so you'll get this as your prize. So do go up there and take a read at that, or make sure you're registered. And I also have the Ask the Podcaster thread is still going. Even though we've already drawn for that giveaway in the past, you are welcome to still ask questions there. And I'm answering them 2 to 3 questions per episode in the podcast in the order that they're put up. So I thought I'd go ahead and answer a few of those right now. So the first one is from Lisa Marie from Caledonia, Wisconsin. And her Ravelry name is The Yarn Goes On. Isn't that a cute Ravelry name? She says, what subjects or courses did you study in college? What was your favorite and what did you dislike? Did you have a class you thought you'd really like and just didn't, or vice versa? So let's see. I have a Bachelor of Arts in journalism and I have a minor in sociology. And I originally, to answer the question about something I thought I'd like and didn't, I originally, when I started college, was going to go into pre-law, and so I signed up for, some low-level political science courses that you had to do in order to go into pre-law. And I absolutely hated it. Absolutely hated it. And I just thought that, a law degree is a lot of years and effort. And if I was that unhappy, did I really want to stick with that? So I don't know where that 18-year-old found the wisdom to get herself out of it, but thank God she did. So I switched over to majoring in journalism. I've always loved writing and done well in my writing courses. My most influential teachers in high school were both English teachers, Mrs. McNeil and Mrs. Emmons, both of whom I'm happy to say I still keep in contact with. Mrs. Emmons more just like Facebook kind of thing, but Mrs. McNeil was my English and drama and coach, and we actually became really good friends and remained friends, and just she had a huge effect on my life and what I chose to do ultimately. So the courses, once I went into journalism, I really enjoyed all of my writing courses, my editing and everything. My favorite course in journalism was, though, my ethics and law course. So yeah, I do still have that interest in things, and I just enjoyed that class a lot. And we did do a lot of legal studies and things like that in that course. And the course that I absolutely hated that I had to take for journalism, that I just despised, probably is no surprise, because as a word person, I hated math. And statistics was just a nightmare. I ended up getting an A in it after a huge cramming session. I think I spent like 8 hours with a friend of mine who was in the course at a bar called Yogi's at IU. Before our final, we sat there for like 8 hours eating food I'm sure that we shouldn't have been eating and cramming for this course. And we were both terrified and for the final exam. And I knew that the final exam was going to really determine what I got as a grade in the class, but I didn't realize how poorly most people were doing in the class. And so then it ended up being set on a curve and I got an A in it, but that was really a stressful course for me. I did learn stuff that I still use, yes, but yeah, anyway. And just sociology I thought was really interesting. I think my hardest course for sociology, but most interesting and satisfying, was social theory. And we actually had to study all sorts of documents, and then we had to write manifestos, or we had to write documentation that would, by the way we told it, change the thought process that came out from the reader. So those things were really interesting to me. Okay, so I think that was everything in that. And the second question is from Sherry, and Sherry is from Anderson, Indiana, and her Ravelry name is slawyer03. And Sherry is somebody that I know personally because she used to take classes from me at the local yarn shop I taught at long ago. And specifically, she took top-down sweaters with me. So we had a lot of fun knitting those together. And she says, I have one question. It's not related to knitting or crochet. I know you had a serious health scare, excuse me, not too long ago. I was wondering if you are back to full health. So the answer is I'm back to as full health as I'm probably going to get, because the health scare that I had a tumor in my small intestine, and it isn't a typical type of cancer/tumor. It's one that you can live with, thank God. It can cause quite a few issues because they tend to grow, mine tend to grow around my intestines, and that one was causing me pain for over 5 years before they figured out what it was. And it was, in the end, it was blocking and stuff like that. So they took that out and some of the intestine tissue around it, and all my pain went away. All these drugs they had me taking for what they thought I had this, they thought I had that, all of that went away, and I got my life back. And I was so grateful for that, because before I really had gotten to the point where I wasn't able to leave the house because I would get in so much pain that I wouldn't be able to stand up, and I wasn't able to eat anything. So I'm really grateful that we finally figured out what it was. Unfortunately, because it had taken so long to figure that out, it had already gone into my lymph nodes in my small intestine, and they didn't want to remove those because it's much more invasive. And so I will always have that in my body, and I'll always have a chance that more of those tumors will grow. So I just have to be aware of what my body is saying to me. But I'm much better than what I was before. So if you'd like to learn more about neuroendocrine tumors and cancers, my understanding is that overseas they're only called neuroendocrine. In the US, they're referred to as neuroendocrine and carcinoid. So if you'd like to learn more about that, I'll put a link here in the video to the Carcinoid Foundation organization. I can't remember which one it is, so that you can get more information. So thank you for asking. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I'm so much better. So let's see. The third one is from Rita from Burlington, Washington, and her Ravelry name is Nelsor. She says, what got you into designing patterns, and how long did it take you to design your first pattern? How did you and Christina meet? I thoroughly enjoyed your podcast with Christina. So I'm going to take those in reverse order because it makes more sense that way. So I met Christina when we were both working retail and teaching at Stitches and Scones, which was a local yarn shop here in Indiana, and it's since closed, but we were both working there. And I remember distinctively the moment that I met Christina, because Christina looks very young, and this was years ago, so she looked even younger. And we had some high school students that had started working at the shop around the same time. And it wasn't uncommon for, at the time I worked Thursday nights, and it wasn't uncommon for the high school students to work on Thursday nights with me because it was at night when they weren't in class. So I was asked to show her the ropes that evening, and I thought she was in high school. She was already married, and I don't know, I totally thought she was in high school, and she wasn't. And then, we knew we didn't have a lot of shifts together, but we both got into designing and had that connection. So we would chat with each other, here and there when we saw each other at the store. And she taught like a little dye class that I took, and so we'd have, and then we did. I ran a knit along that you could use any of her patterns in the knit along at the store and make any of those. And she had a lot of sweater patterns out at the time that were newer, and we had, I think, 35 to 40 women who signed up, and they were all making different sweaters, and it was myself and a couple other ladies, and we ran this knit along doing all of Christina's patterns and knitting all of Christina's patterns. It was a lot of fun. So and then after the shop closed, Christina and I just kept up with each other, and we'd get together every now and then for knit night, and we still do, and then our friendship just kept growing and growing. So I'm very grateful. That's my takeaway from my time at the shop. A lot of takeaways, but that's one of the top. And how did I get into designing patterns? At the store, I was teaching, and I was teaching beginning knitting, and so my very first patterns were really patterns that I designed to let my students use, or to do as their next project after they did a garter stitch scarf or whatever. And it really kind of happened naturally. I didn't at the beginning sit down and think, I'm gonna design this and write it up as a pattern. I actually just sat and did some knitting because I had to make gifts for people. And then people would say, I really like that. Is there a pattern for it? Can you write it down for me? So that's how I started doing that. And I really have loved it because it fit right in my wheelhouse of with publishing, because of my journalism background and my history as working in book publishing. I had all those skill sets and knowledge to write it, edit it, design it, lay it out, photography, all that kind of stuff I had. I mean, I'm not saying I'm great, but at least I had like a few courses in it, I guess that's what I should say. And then some experience at the publishing house. So it really, at the time I was still working at the publishing house, and I really wanted a creative outlet. And the designing part of that really filled that void for me at that time. So that's how I kind of got into it, and it's hard for me to put a time on it because I wasn't like sitting and doing it like I am now. Now it takes me a long time because I'm not just doing, beginner patterns anymore, and I really pay a lot of attention to try and make sure that I put as much information in there as possible in a very clear way. Not always successful, but at least I give it a try. So yeah, now it can take me much longer. I think I've gotten a lot slower, but I think that's good. I think that means I'm thinking about it more, and it ends up being a better pattern in the end. So, and I did want to mention too, I think a lot of you probably watch Disa's Craftwork Podcast. Disa is in Sweden, and I absolutely adore her podcast and really, really enjoy it and wanted to support her. So I told her that I'd be happy to donate a free pattern if she wanted to do that as a giveaway. So if you go over to Disa's podcast, and she has a Ravelry board, I think it's also called Disa's Craftwork Podcast group or something like that. If you look for, there aren't a lot of Disas in there, so you could look for Disa. And she has a thread going where you can register to win a free copy of one of my patterns, and you get to pick whichever one you want, and I'll gift that to you in Ravelry. So, and a lot of you had such nice things to say on that thread, and I really appreciated them. You brought me to tears and made me happy. So I really appreciate that. I think that's everything except for, I thought I'd share a little funny story to end on. A lot of you have been watching the podcast and are familiar with Kennedy. Kiki, aka Kennedy, is my little Yorkie, and there was a funny event last week that happened, and I got up and I'm gonna walk today. I'm gonna go for a long walk on the trail across from our house. So I put on my headphones and I went and I did my walk, and I came home, and my husband said she was just beyond not excited, beyond help while you were gone, because she was so distressed that you weren't here. And she always gets a little bit upset, but I guess she was spinning in circles and stuff that day. So he said, when I go this afternoon, I'll take her for my walk. So I was downstairs doing some work, and he put on his stuff and his shoes, and he put her collar on her, and she was all excited, and it was bright and sunny, and they went out for their walk, and they were gone about 15 minutes. And out of nowhere, it just got pitch black and it poured rain. And because of where they were walking, it wouldn't have done any good for me to drive over and pick them up. I couldn't have done that. They were in like it's not a park, but it's a trail that's not accessible to a road. So I just had to wait and see what was going to walk through the door. And they didn't have an umbrella or anything because it wasn't supposed to rain that day, and it didn't look like rain when they left. And so they came charging back in and just absolutely drenched. Both of them were completely drenched. And he said that, and she doesn't really run a lot. Like, she'll walk really fast, but she doesn't really, like, she's a little dog. He said that she ran full force for like a quarter of a mile at least, trying to get back out of the rain, and wouldn't look up. And the rest of the day and evening, she totally snubbed him. She completely blamed him and had such a little attitude. She was so mad. So it was pretty funny to see them. I felt bad, but he was laughing too. So anyway, I thought that was a little funny story that I would share about Kennedy. So all right, well, I will see you guys in a couple weeks. I'm planning, unless the weather changes, which it could happen, planning to go to a fiber festival Friday afternoon. So hopefully I'll have some fun things to share with you in the next episode. And I'm hoping that I get some of my knitting mojo back and beyond design work and beyond socks, and have some other things to share with you. So all right, I hope you all are doing well. Be sure to drop into the board and chat, or send me an email, or check out the blog, whatever. I'd love to hear from all of you. So I hope you all are doing well, and I'll talk to you again soon. Happy knitting and crocheting. Bye-bye.